This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold. MMA Junkie Radio.
Fight capital of the world and Costa Mesa, California. You are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes. Our ace co-host, back east, handling all the producing duties today. It's going to be Chris. Sitting in for me, even though I'm here, is our good friend Dan Tom, one of the preeminent fight breaker downers in the sport of mixed martial arts. What's up, guys? How you doing?
What's up? How's everybody doing today?
Great, man. Great to be here, guys.
George?
Yep.
You went to Disneyland.
Love it when you're there, Dan. Excuse me?
Tell us about Disneyland.
Right away, just jump right into it.
Hell yeah. The happiest place on earth.
It is, man. It really is. It's a great spot. I haven't been there in years, but we went, and we basically rewound time and became little kids. It was a little boy and a little girl just going on rides. We bought hats, took pictures, ate what we wanted, drank what we wanted, and we were happy. So it was cool. It was really cool. But I really do get a kick out of just seeing how happy, the real kids are. I mean, they're just skipping all the way to the entrance. They're excited once they get past that turnstile, and then as soon as they see, a character, their faces light up. Or when they're just about to board a ride, some of them are smiling, some of them are like, on the verge of tears because they hear a lot of the yelling going on. It might be too fast for them, but it was really cool. It brought back a lot of memories of when our parents used to take us or drop us off. We're SoCalers, so if you go to Disneyland, it's just part of your life. If you've never been, I agree with something Juliet told me yesterday. If you've never been and you kind of go for the first time, you're like, what's the big deal? You've seen the movies and everything kind of becomes a pain in the ass. But if you're a little kid and you've done it all those times, you just kind of know. And so overall, man, I had a great time. So we're going back today.
As an adult, you look at it a little differently now, because now I see like how much money goes into your admission, the food that day. And so I look back and I'm just grateful that our parents were able to do that, because now I think about what maybe they had to cut back on to give their kids that little enjoyment of going. And not only that, I was a stupid kid that, can I bring my best friend? And I know my mom and dad probably paid for him too and bought his food. They're probably rolling their eyes. This guy bringing extra people. But did you break the churro record, George?
Hell no. Those things are filling.
I don't know how we ate that.
I made the mistake.
And a cake.
For one, I went, and we're staying in a hotel near Disneyland, and so I took my time. I did my homework. I wanted to make sure I didn't pay for parking, and I looked for a hotel. Obviously it had to be decent to start with, but no parking and free breakfast, because I figured, a lot of those places have it. And if you can fill yourself up, that's one less meal you got to pay for, somewhere inside the park. So by the time I got there, I was still full from breakfast, because breakfast was eggs and they have bacon and everything. It's a little buffet. It's nice. Waffles, you name it. So once I got in there, I wanted to have a churro just to start things off with, because Max Holloway got in my head a few weeks ago talking about the churros. But A, those things are filling. B, I kind of was still full from breakfast. And C, I kind of wanted to save some room for dinner, So I was looking for another churro, like about an hour and a half later. But I was good, man. I was good. I was filling up with water, trying to stay hydrated. and just I could probably do 5, I guess, if I wanted to challenge him and just say, hey, look, I represented, but I couldn't do 15. I don't even know if he could do 15. I actually may look him in the eye and go, fool, is you tripping? Did you really have 15 or did you embellish here? Because that's what we do sometimes on radio. We embellish, but 15's a lot, goes.
I know.
Trust me, they're big churros. They're thick and floury and doughy and sweet and wow, man, I don't know. I think I'd actually throw up.
What we didn't ask him was, did he have like actual meals that day? Because his family didn't eat 15 churros, right? At some point, they probably said, Dad, let's sit down and get a burger. Did he partake in that as well with the 15 churros?
I just want to see him the day after, what that looked like. I mean, I almost wish I wasn't in studio that day because Disneyland for me used to be memories and family and innocence and all these things, and now it's Max Holloway's Churro
It is.
Fest. Like,
That's the way it is for me too.
I'm still trying to put it together, pick up the pieces from that. I'm like, how?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you'd have to average one an hour, honestly. He probably has really, really great metabolism, and maybe it's just going right through him. But still, man, it's like I say, it's just doughy, and there's obviously it's very, very sweet. So maybe he uses that energy to just walk everywhere that his kids want him to go. But I'm telling you, man, for me, I think the most I could do is 5, and then after that, I'd go, well, what the hell did I do that for? 3, I mean, actually, to really just enjoy them, probably 2 or 3, and I'm good. The last 2 would just be for fun, really, but. Or just to say, hey, look, I'm somewhere in your ballpark. But, yeah, that's it, man. But they are delicious. I had one immediately, loved it. Tried to cheer me up. The first thing I went on was Splash Mountain, and I got soaked. So I did need some cheering up, and I saw the churros stand right there.
Oh, nice. You doing California Adventure today?
Yeah, so that's why I'm going back, to see a little bit more of California Adventure. Even though I went yesterday towards the end, they have this light show goes over their lake that I was told is Bellagio times 10, and I was like, come on.
It's pretty cool.
I rolled my eyes. I didn't want to be rude, but I heard, come on, And then when I watched it, it really was good, man. It was awesome. It started to rain towards the end, so we backed off. But so Juliet's got some friends that just have the hookups, dude. We got in for free for 1, and 2. One guy is so connected, goes, that we were literally walking up to lines, and they were just giving us the fast pass.
Damn.
So even though I didn't get a chance to start Disneyland until after I left here, we didn't even get in until like 2:30. Within an hour, we had already done Space Mountain, Big Thunder, and Splash Mountain.
What?
So maybe that's why the churro was sitting in my tummy like what the hell? I wanted to come up because, my head was jolting back and forth.
That.
I needed a chiropractic adjustment after those 3 rides. Yeah, we just walk up to the line and they just kind of lift up one of the chains and say, go through here. It was really, really cool. So shout out to Brian Rocha. Really, really hooked that up. And then her friend Kent, I'll leave out that last part. But she definitely has the hookups.
Can't thank him enough?
Cannot thank him enough, because some of those lines are brutal, honestly. And as I'm walking through, I swear to God, I'm going to do it today. I thought of it a little too late. I honestly wanted to walk in there like Vince McMahon, and now how Conor McGregor does it, the billionaire walk. That strut.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. I passed so many people that are sitting down, and they're like, oh man, some want to turn the other way and leave the ride, and others are like, who's that guy? So I think I'm going to milk it a little bit more today, but that's really what it looks like, as you're just passing everybody on by all the way almost to the front.
Hey, somebody asked me what I did yesterday.
What did you do yesterday?
In fact, I'm going to do it and have Juliet kind of tape it on the way in, see if she can do it discreetly, so you can see kind of everyone's reaction. You guys will dig it serious.
Hey, yesterday?
Hey, guys, what'd you do yesterday?
I had one of those workouts with Ulysses Gomez. But I couldn't do the afternoon, so I switched it to the nighttime. When I show up at night, he goes, oh, man, I forgot you were coming. He goes, all right, well, you're going to hop in with this class, which is his jiu-jitsu guy's circuit training class. Yeah, that was not fun. My body is broken today, George. I was walking into the studio today like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I could barely move my arms, my back. Everything's hurting, dude. But I got through it.
That's funny to me right there. I love it.
You should have watched it. It would have been funnier.
Watch Go's Jitsu go to Go's Jitsu to Gon
Oh,
Jitsu
it was
in no
the
time.
worst.
Oh, man.
That was goon jitsu.
I want to congratulate Dan. Let's bring him into the show a little bit more. Dan, you're going to be working with Flow Combat. We saw that announcement about a week ago. We're excited for you. We're pumped for you. Congratulations, my man. You deserve it. You worked hard for that.
Man, that's huge. Like I told you guys, personally on the side, a lot of it's due to support of the MMA community and people that I'd known, whether it was just when I was competing or as a fan through guys like you and who have just been good to me the whole way through. So hearing stuff like from you guys or Junkie Nation, people who have reached out. Shout out to Junkie Nation, by the way. It really means a lot, man. And it's an honor to be aboard. I can feel a little better about talking about it now because today actually my first article dropped with them. I broke down Rodriguez versus Penn, and then that article actually dropped today with them. And we can probably talk about that later if callers want to call in.
Just one question. I think everyone on
very realistically and in depth like my normal ones. To pay a little more homage, I actually did a long form article that's with MMA Latest News, another outlet I do work with. That one's actually pinned in my wall right now about BJ Penn's career and kind of encapsulating that because we forget history really fast. With this whole McGregor 2-weight division, Mac life, and this and that. We forgot that there was a guy that was actually making his own promotion, actually making his own website, although it's a butt end of a lot of jokes now, actually, going up, weights and not doing it for the money, doing it for the love. And I think it's important to remember that. So I really want to do that. But of course, I stay realistic. I stay an analyst and I break things down by the facts in my breakdowns. And that's a good question because a lot of people are writing off BJ Penn. The narrative is so negative out there, how quickly we forget things. And although, not to kind of show my hand, I'm picking with the guy who's favored to win that fight, but I bring up a lot of good points and a lot of things people should watch out for. I did the same thing, even though I was one of the few to pick Bisping against Anderson Silva. I didn't pick Bisping against Rockhold. I was with everybody else that picked Rockhold. But what I did was there was such a strong narrative that Bisping couldn't win that I found it disturbing. So what I did is I wrote my breakdown based on how Bisping could win, even though I was picking the other guy, to kind of do some service, to kind of play that devil's advocate, which I know you like to do, GG. And I did that with this Penn versus Rodriguez breakdown. I tried to play a little bit of devil's advocate while sticking to the facts. But what I will say is people should not base their sample size off of that last fight. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to be up on his toes and this and that. And I'm like, well, that was 2 years ago, and we're going to pick one fight out of a guy who has the most wide-ranging span of any active fighter right now. Or, it would be a mistake even analytically to do that. So I'm not expecting that BJ Penn to come out, but I do kind of expand on why we saw that BJ Penn and how that could play into this fight.
Cool. I look forward to reading it. I'm a subscriber to Flow. And, of course, I know where else I can get your work, MMA Latest News. And, of course, if you want to follow Dan on Twitter, he shares links with everything he's got going on at the MMA Analyst. However, there's only one A to be shared between MMA and Analyst. How do you say it again, Dan?
At
the MM Analyst,
At
right?
the MM Analyst, because there is a guy out there that's at the MMA Analyst, and, he's only tweeted once, and he doesn't write about MMA, but on his profile it says he's got, a bachelor in MMA analysis. I didn't realize there was a degree you could get for MMA analysis, which is just hilarious. I mean, it's a silly field anyways, and everybody asked me what I did to be qualified. I'm like, any qualification of black belts or competitions I can give you doesn't matter. The only good qualifications, I've gotten beat up more than a lot of people in a lot of different martial arts at a lot of different places around the world. I didn't realize that you could go to college and do that. But yeah, don't follow that guy. No offense, I'm not throwing shade, but he doesn't tweet, so there's nothing really to hate there. But I'm at the MM Analyst.
You got beat up in school a lot?
Me? Oh, yeah. Oh, look at me, man.
Didn't you go to an all-girls school, though?
Well, let's not talk about that. But yeah. No, I went to Catholic school. It just scared me and made me strong. But yeah, no.
Hey, really quick, and then we'll get it. We're going to break in about 10 minutes, and there's a couple callers that we need to get to, but just want to get your thoughts on Mark Hunt. He filed a civil lawsuit against the UFC, Brock Lesnar, and Dana White. He alleges racketeering, conspiracy, fraud. And so what he's seeking through a U.S. district court is compensatory and punitive damages, as well as an order for the defendants to, quote, disgorge their ill-gotten profits. Guys, none of us, I think the guy that tried to copy your site or your name, whatever degree he has, it's probably more credentialed than any of us three in the world of legalities in the law world. So we're not going to try and figure out what the hell may happen there. But the only thing I can think of is, doesn't it sound to you guys more like a settlement is what Mark Hunt's looking for? Because does he really want to dive into something like this versus the UFC, who can stretch it out, who has resources and the means to defend themselves, and Brock's also got some money, and I don't know. What's it sound like to you guys?
It sounds exactly like that. And if not a settlement, something behind the scenes, or hell, even a statement. I mean, we see what the MMA Association is trying to do. I mean, I think fighters are just trying to put that out for people to know, to be aware of what's going on, because you're right. Who wants to be involved in a lawsuit in the middle of a training camp against somebody who can just drag this thing on forever, and the amount of money that you're trying to get, you're going to spend a lot of that on attorneys. It just kind of probably doesn't make sense. I think he's trying to make a statement, and I'm thinking he's probably hoping behind the scenes they go, look, man, just throw this stupid lawsuit out. Our bad. Here's a little bit of dough.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely try to stay in my lane, so if it doesn't have something to do with someone getting punched, I don't know if I can offer the best opinion, as far as legal advice. But that being said, I don't think Mark Hunt is any more advanced as far as the legal system as we are. I think it's more of a case of, if I had to guess, I mean, it's the trend of a headline is more of a bargaining chip these days than a lawsuit, right? Mm-hmm. And especially with the UFC, so maybe he's going out with that angle, just seeing what he can get, from the headline, seeing what he can spark. And I mean, it's certainly sparking a conversation at the very least. I mean, I don't have the foggiest though how it's going to spark in the courtroom.
The UFC's pretty airtight with everything they do. These contracts over the past, I'm sure they were decently airtight since 1993, but especially, back in the early part of this century when Zuffa took over, they clean things up pretty good. So you're rarely ever going to get too far when it comes to going head to head versus the UFC. All right, so let's take some calls. I'm hearing that we have a few veterans on the line, starting off with Brandon in Louisville. What's up, Brandon? How you doing?
Hey, boys. How y'all doing today?
Good, man. How you?
A little weirded out. Y'all talking to the analyst and talking about being airtight. I don't know what I turned into.
Yeah, be careful when you're trying to find my website, by the way. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. You could really be redirected the wrong ways.
I know. It took me 15 minutes to actually find it. I mean, 2 minutes of typing and 13 minutes of actually looking at what I went through the wrong time. Hey, the real reason I called, Joe, TJ, you all talking on Monday about the super fight and how it's kind of a watered-down term now. When it wasn't a watered-down term, how many of those super fights did we were getting kind of what we wanted? We never got GSP and Anderson. We never got Jones and the heavyweight champ. We never got Anderson, Silva, and Jones. Now we're at least attempting to get some of that.
Well, we got GSP and BJ Penn, right? That was one. And then technically you can count Matt Hughes and Hoist Gracie because I think they ended up doing that at 175, didn't they?
They did it at 175. Yeah,
it
wasn't super in the fact that Hoist wasn't at his best and in his prime. Mm-hmm. He was a former champion, but it was an old school versus new school deal.
That's the meaning
for sure.
I had
Penn
behind
and GSP. I also consider Penn versus Hughes one. Maybe it wasn't on the level of, oh my God, pay-per-views went through the roof or anything like that. But it was two great fighters from different divisions mixing it up. I thought when Edgar dropped to fight Aldo, I considered it, to me, a super fight. If we were going to define a super fight and say, oh, well, it's got to be in a stadium or two belts have to be on the line, then yeah, I guess we're going to be hard-pressed to find many. But if you just take two all-time greats and somehow make it happen, two that kind of sat in, to borrow a term from Dan, their own lane, did their own thing for many years, and then one budged and made it down, then there's a few out there. I thought when Couture dropped from heavyweight to light heavyweight to mix it up with Ortiz and Liddell, I was considering that kind of a version of a super fight. Edgar Aldo, Penn and Hughes, GSP and Penn. So there's a few out there. I even thought when Cormier dropped, he was a lifelong heavyweight, and then he started mixing it up and eventually made it to Jones. To me, that I felt like I was watching a version of a super fight. So I'm sure there's definitions out there of what a super fight is. I'm kind of giving you what mine is. I feel like I've seen a few, maybe a dozen in my life. But, yeah, that's it. I want to see more. But they just have to make sense, and I think we're trying to get there a little too early nowadays. Hey, I want a title, I want a super fight. No, you want a money fight.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Ask for it. Plant the seed for later, but we're going to tell you if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense, and usually fans and media aren't crazy. I think we throw out our reasons for why we should or shouldn't.
No, I'm glad that you made that distinction, because there is a huge distinction between a money fight and a super fight. Right now, if you were to take Ronda Rousey versus Cyborg, which for the longest time we all considered a super fight, now it's a money fight because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree.
You're right.
No, that's good. I'm glad he's bringing that distinction, because that's something that's important that should be made, especially going forward. I think I even was saying earlier this year on the show that we were talking about Conor going up. I think it was before the first Nate Diaz fight, and I was on the show with you guys. And I said, "Hey guys, this is all great. All this stuff that the fans calling for more super fights. But as this gets more prevalent, we're going to see more interim titles come along with it, and we've seen that. But we're also seeing what we're talking about here now is there is a distinction, between a money fight and a super fight. GSP and Penn, that was more of a super fight because they were champions and there was a narrative there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a close fight, a controversial fight. They were both on the top of the pound for pound list. It made sense on so many check boxes. Whereas you compare that to something like a Woodley Bisping, you're going to get a lot less check boxes.
And here's the thing, guys. Like, for the longest time, the prerequisite for a super fight meant that you have two guys who have cleaned out their division, and that's why we're even considering this.
Yep.
It's not like that. When you match up Conor McGregor and Tyron Woodley, there are a bunch of challengers waiting for those two guys. That's why these fights turned into money fights.
Right. All right, let's take one more call. David from Dallas, and then we'll take our first break. What's up, David? How you doing?
GG goes. How are you guys doing?
Good, and you?
Not bad. Long time no call.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I know. You know what's really funny is I went through and I looked up the number on my phone for you guys, and I had all the old Mandalay Bay numbers in there.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, I just want to touch base with you guys real quick and see what you guys are looking forward to this weekend. I got my kids into jiu-jitsu in the last year or so, and I'm really looking forward to this Marcin Held Joe Lozon fight coming up this weekend. So I just want to get y'all's opinion on that.
That's a solid
the people's
fight.
Main event.
Yeah, these guys are nowhere near contenders. They're not even within a fight, two fights, three fights from being in a title fight. But still, they have developed a following through their specialization of the submission game. So as much as we would like to see two guys or gals, stand and bang, like we say, and give us a show, the beauty of a mixed martial art card is going up and down and just seeing where you want certain fighters to take it. I see these two, and I'm like, yes, I want to see some high-level grappling, see what improvements, see if they can maybe stifle each other, and then see who made the better improvements in the stand-up. But for the most part, I do want to see these guys grapple and see who comes out ahead. It's got an old school, new school feel to it. There's a USA versus the world thing. So there's a theme for everybody.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of when Gunnar Nelson and Damian Maia were about to fight, right? We didn't care what happened on the feet. Example. We just wanted to see them hit the ground.
Shields and Pajares was another one, exactly. Like, who's going to get the better of who here? And then now they can punch each other. It's not submission grappling where they have to hold back. Here, it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, too, is these guys, not just, everyone talks about, it's grappling and leg locks, too. Even on the feet, it's kind of crazy because they're both with their money punches at the left hook. They both like to set it up very similar ways. Like, it's crazy. I read this in-depth thing, in-depth breakdown on the top and, standing and on the floor, what I think can happen. But Joe Lozon, in an interview recently, actually just, summed everything up perfectly in one quote and said, it feels like I'm fighting myself from 6 years ago. And that's exactly how I break down this match. Joe Lozon is fighting the older version of himself here. So it's going to be real interesting.
David, thank you so much for calling in. Please call in more often, brother. Folks, you can continue to get in the queue. We're going to come back from a break, and anytime there's a pocket, we will race to get you on, 866-522-2846. Right now, we're going to take a big break. We're going to double up, so we'll see you in a few minutes here on the MMA Junkie Radio Network. And let me also tell you, our guests today will be Felice Herrig, Jeff Sherwood, and Georgi Karakhanyan. Give us a few minutes. We'll be right back.
All right, guys.
To link into the MMA Junkie Radio Network, hit us up on twitter.com at MMA Junkie Radio. This is MMA Junkie Radio. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
I want to thank everybody that's listening in live on Facebook. Shout-outs coming. Tony Clark says Tyron versus Bisping is not a super fight. I would agree partly in that they haven't cleaned out the divisions, built their legacies as champions within the divisions, but I would say that it's a super fight in that two champions would be fighting, you know, and one of them would have a chance to become a simultaneous, but we'll meet halfway.
I totally
recently with McGregor versus Alvarez. I mean, you'd have a guy trying to be a champion at the same time in two different divisions. That's a little bit more than what we usually see. So that's why I say I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. But yeah, I mean, a lot different from the others who they just got so bored within their own divisions they had to explore other avenues. These guys are just exploring big paydays, and I don't hate them for it. Christina Kern, shout out to her. She agrees also that GSP Hughes was a great one. Let's see here. Ramundo Martin, that's AKA Showtime. He's watching. Dean Desper is watching from Georgia. Sosa Torres is watching from Brooklyn, New York. Ray Gomez says, Kane may never be the same. Back surgery is tough to come from. You know, I heard that the surgery went well, and it was actually minor. It's just he needed it to happen. Mm-hmm. So science is definitely advanced when it comes to the spine and shoulders and knees. Look at Dominic Cruz, man. Both knees taken out, but he came back, won a world title, had a title defense, and, you know, he looked like he was as good as ever, man. So have faith. I think Kane still has a few more good years in him. What's scaring me is fighters that are just saying, hey, look, enough's enough. I want to be able to hold my kids. And now they can do that because some of them have made some paper and stacked some paper. And if they, you know, are good investors on the side, they may not need to go as long as others. There's others that really have blown through everything. And even if they go out there and get 100 Gs or 200 Gs, you know, they'll go out there and still do it knowing full well they're not what they used to be. But God bless them if they can do it, because there are shows that will pay them for it, and there are people that will watch that.
Hey,
a few more here.
Hey,
and
George.
Then we'll get to Josh from, yeah.
Really quick, on that same topic, people have to understand that even you can go through the concussion protocol and all that, and you'll bounce back, but that little area, that gray area, is a scary thing, dude. And is it cool to talk about?
Yeah.
Dan actually suffered a concussion at Extreme Couture. I'll let him talk a little bit about it. But there's been times where, like, I think I told you, like, hey, let's go to this concert or something. You've had to tell me I can't do that, man, because the loud noises, it really messes with you, right?
Yeah, man, that's part of the reason, actually, why I'm, without getting too deep into it, why I'm even doing this analyst stuff in the first place. I would compete and stuff, and, you know, and just, you know, a fan and, you know, martial artist, as you guys knew me, you know, from the, you know, outside the show. And I suffered a concussion in a training camp for an amateur fight, 2015. And, yeah, I didn't drink. I didn't do combat. Like, I did, like, the whole protocol for, like, 3 months because it was weird. Like, it wasn't even, I've been hit and leveled, and, like, I didn't even realize how it happened. I went through 7 rounds of sparring, and I was getting the better of those rounds, I feel. Ended the last round on top and got up and went to do our lap at the end of practice and just was dizzy, was all over the place, was despondent. Like, my girlfriend had a whole salmon dinner ready for me. I was just, like, staring at a wall. And so I took the protocols, and what was scarier was even taking the protocols, about 3 months later, symptoms came back, and they came back worse to the point where I could only, like, drive once a day. I couldn't even go to concerts, like Goz was saying. It was kind of toward the end of the year, 2015, and Goz likes to hit a bunch of concerts that come through town, and I felt so bad. You know, I was having to turn down, like, to go to movies with friends. Like, I think I maybe saw one movie in the last half of 2015, yeah, I lost a corporate job that I had, and, you know, thankfully I have a new job now and parlayed it into a positive, but it was a serious thing. It really just shook my whole, and I've been doing, martial arts since 1992, throwing punches and kicks. You know what I'm saying? That's going to add up no matter what. But I never thought about the sport in that context. And having to go through it, I'll tell you, it really revamped my awareness on the subject. And I'm very sensitive to that. And I really respect that when somebody says they're having issues like that.
Yeah.
And I think other people should too. But that's my 2 cents.
Damn. I didn't know about the corporate job.
Yeah, no, it
really hurt you.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, it's hard to. You look like a strapping, fit young kid, and you're saying, you're too dizzy to drive. It sounds kind of like a BS excuse, and your sick times and all those things only go so far, and that's kind of the tough thing about it, because you look fine on the outside, and you're like, I'm healthy, I can do all these things, but what if this was permanent? My equilibrium was just shot, right, and stuff like that. I mean. It's really, again, really, kind of redefines, your version of what's health. Like a broken arm, at least it sucks, it's painful, but there's an end time, right? Like, okay, it's by a couple months, I'm going to be good. When you don't know, when the science and doctors don't even know, and the specialists you're going to don't even know, because it's such a new science, there's so much new information out there. I mean, it's a pretty scary thing, so.
A quick shout out to Darren Smith, also Kaplan Deshikoff, watching on the Facebook live stream. Daniel Narcisse wanted you to do the intro, Dan. I guess we saw that a little too late. But I think Dan can pull it off. He's been on the show quite a few times. Eddie De La Rosa says Pena will be the new champ. And get this, Joe from H-Town wants you guys to hang up on me. He's so zany. All right, let's go to Josh from Ontario, Canada. He's been on hold. What's up, Josh? How you doing?
Hey, guys. Not much. Just to chime in on this super fight or money fight talk here. I think, previously it was about cleaning out a division. I have to agree with Goes. I think the only guy right now that has done that is still DJ down there at 125, but we all wanted to see him against Cruz, and then obviously Garbrandt just took out Cruz a couple weeks ago or last week. So what do you think? Does that take any luster off of any potential super fight with DJ, or do people just automatically parlay, throw that right onto Garbrandt, or does that fight just sort of, does that take anything away from that fight?
I'll just say this, guys. We're going to have to call it a super fight because that's how the UFC is going to tab it, one champion versus the other. Maybe we have to come up with another term of what really Silva versus GSP would have been, except we called it a super fight. So if we're going to leave that alone, and just call long-term champions versus long-term champions a super fight, especially if they're meeting, at a catch weight or something like that, then we're going to have to come up with something other than money fight and super fight, because I don't think it'd be a money fight because, as we all know, poor Demetrius, not his fault. He just doesn't sell, and I don't know that it would be really a cash cow or anything like that. So we might have to just look for some other term. But until we can, I'd call it a super fight anytime two champions fight.
Showcase fight.
How about money fight?
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Or keep it simple, 3. There are money fights, super fights, and legend fights.
Legend fights?
Legend fights have been being done.
Well, but Garbrandt wouldn't be a legend just yet. He wouldn't be a legend just yet.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
So maybe a showcase fight? I don't know. Maybe we have to think about it.
I'm just talking about, I think, just kind of classifying these outside fights. I mean, not that you'd want an organization of, base their things on it, but as far as, these outlying fights, I mean, there's, super fight, which is, Pacquiao, Mayweather, St. Pierre, Silva, or, the aforementioned, Penn St. Pierre, because it's checking all those boxes where you have money fight, that's more tangible, you have champions, big money, it's a promotional gearing, so to speak, and then legend fights, whether stuff like Bellator, not picking on Bellator because I think UFC 109 did it too with Randy Couture, Mark Coleman, legend fights. So I don't know. That seems like the 3 major subcategories outside of rankings. So those old things we used to go by, rankings. Huh. Oh boy.
Good stuff, Josh. Way to initiate some talk. We'll have to really think of a term and see if there's something out there. Otherwise, we'll just stick to it. Defining a fight as a money fight or a super fight for now. Let's go to Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco?
Marco from Waco, and we had a fickle crowd, man. At one point, we're like, we want the fighters to get paid, and now that the fighters are looking for ways to get mega pays, we complain about it. But what do we want, man? What do we want?
Hey, you're right.
Cain Velasquez, man, I saw called it on the Luke Thomas show. Thinking I said, and I kind of saw his point. Cain Velasquez maybe a little bit overrated, like one of the greatest of all time. only fought 4 guys. And that's freaking 5 years. That's how he finished his only opponents. So maybe a little bit of revisionist history. Cain Velasquez maybe not as good as we thought he was. Just because he hasn't faced that much competition, man. Thoughts on that. We'll let you guys catch you guys tomorrow.
See you, Marco. All right. Well, I looked it up. He's got Rothwell, Nogueira, Lesnar. Bigfoot, when he beat him, was about like 18-4, if I'm not mistaken. Now Bigfoot's lost 6 of his last. Goes down as an all-time great. That's just up. To be one of those where, 3 wins and a title and maybe a title defense, and you're in that talk one way or another. It's interesting. But first, we're going to talk to Georgi Karakhanyan from Bellator MMA. Bellator 170 is coming up. We'll talk to him, gather his thoughts. We'll see you in a few.
They were kicked off the set of The Fast and the Furious for being too loud and too good-looking. Once again, here's gorgeous George and Goes.
All right. If you were on hold, you caught some interesting chatter there about subways. I've been to New York 4 times, but I still haven't been on one of their subways. But I didn't know it was like that. Jesus, I may have to just walk or take a cab or take Uber. Chris and Dan filling us in on just exactly what it's like. Holy cow. I thought I was watching too many movies, but apparently it is like that. So, Chris, you're saying people are like doing gymnastics routines now?
Well, if you go to any subway car ever, there's always a group of kids, a group of young kids who go on and make a bunch of noise saying, all right, this is the insert wacky name here group, and we are going to do a routine for you. They play some EDM dance techno music, and they swing around the poles like you're playing Donkey Kong 64 again. They swing all over the place, and then they expect money afterward. And it's just characters everywhere on the subway.
Yeah, as someone who's...
How pushy are they? What if you don't tip? What if you just got your headphones on and don't do anything?
I don't think I've ever tipped and was okay. My favorite thing to do is I would even watch a show like unabashedly, and they'll be doing like these flips like Chris was saying. But my favorite thing to do is to watch was no matter what flip or trick they would do on the handrail.
Just dropped.
Yeah, I would just watch the pedestrian, the commuter, like just sitting next to him, just completely ignoring this dude just doing flips in front of him. It's the funniest thing. It's peak New York right there.
That's hilarious too. Because what would be your routine? I think I'd be popping like Ronald McDonald Miller, just keeping it basic.
Me, I think I would either mime or robot it. But I think I would mime.
How much do you think you can actually get from a ride?
We'll do it next time here at Mandalay Bay, the tram. If you want, I'll mime and just see, and then like stick a hat out and see what I get.
I'll film that. My favorite Subway character was this guy that would come on. He had long hair. He looked like Steve Aoki, but he had short shorts and he had long hair like a metalhead. But he had a giant cello. I think cello. I think that's a standing bass, right? And he would. He had great finger dexterity because he would just work this standing bass and just do death metal, but it was on a classical cello and have nothing else, just a cello and just short shorts and long hair. And he'd go from train car to train car. He was one of my favorite characters, for sure.
All right, looks like we're still trying to connect with Georgi Karakhanyan, so we'll work on that right now. This is your chance to get in the queue, 866-522-2846. I can tell you one other bit of bad news. We lost Felice Herrig today. So we'll try and reschedule her for another day. I just got that word during the commercial. So all it does is open things up for you all to call in and participate in the discussion. If you want to share a good Subway story, I'm all ears.
Georgie's there.
Oh, Georgie's there. Okay. All right, cool. So let's roll with Georgi Karakhanyan. But we will have some time at the beginning of the second hour for any Subway stories. If you want to get in the queue, 866-522-2846. Georgi Karakhanyan will be fighting at Bellator 170. We're telling you yesterday, this card's really stacked, starting with Ortiz and Sonnen at the top. It'll be interesting to see these two former collegiate wrestlers who have mixed it up once on that wrestling mat now do their thing as they wind down their careers in mixed martial arts. Paul Daly and Brennan Ward, I mean, these guys are going to slug it out. I cannot wait to see that one. Hallett Gracie, one of the few Gracies that have actually, done their thing, especially out of the Helio Gracie type of branch. A lot of the Gracies decided not to fight, but Hallett Gracie, one of Horion's sons, has done it. He's 3-0. He's doing it. Georgi Karakhanyan will be fighting Emmanuel Sanchez, Derek Anderson versus Derek Campos. Great card. Go out there and support in Inglewood, California. What's up, Georgie? How you doing, brother?
Good, George. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. And so listen, Emmanuel Sanchez, yet another person you just got the dispatch of. But in looking at who you fought over your career, I'm not sure even breaks in your top 5. That's how stacked the amount of opponents you've had. I mean, you've really, really had a lot of great opponents over your career. How do you keep getting excited for these guys?
The kid comes from a good camp, so the way I look at this is their camp has one win over me. So that's one good motivation. So, looking at the Rick Glenn fight. But, I'm always motivated. I feel like if the motivation is not there, it's time to hang the gloves and not fight anymore. But I'm always motivated. I'm hungry. And this is a good matchup. I mean, the kid comes to fight. Tough Mexican kid with a lot of heart. And, never been finished. So that's another motivation. I'm looking forward to January 21st.
You dig deep enough, there are different ways to look at it, and you're right, he hasn't been finished. I was going back to, your days with Joe Warren and Pitbull Frady. You got a chance to fight Dean Thomas before he retired. Bubba Jenkins a couple times. Pat Kern was a former world champion. Daniel Weichels got as great of a record out there as most featherweights, and people don't realize that. And Lance Palmer's a stud. That's why it's nothing against Sanchez. It's just the amazing tally of opponents that you've had. You really haven't had too many cupcakes on your schedule.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's why I feel like as a veteran and, I had a lot of experience with all these tough fighters, and you mentioned all their names. These guys are all legit good fighters, but looking at Sanchez, I don't underestimate him. I think he's a good fighter, comes good camp, and he fought some of my previous opponents that I've faced before. So it's going to be a good scrap, on January 21st.
Goes, what do you have for Georgi Karakhanyan?
Georgie, the finishes, I was there for one of them. They're insane. Do those ever feel like they get addicting of sorts, like that? Like you just want to keep that momentum going?
Yeah, man. I feel like nothing better in the sport than the finishes. I think as a fighter, if you want to make your name out there really fast, you got to go out there and just deliver exciting fights and just mainly finish. If it's a submission, TKO, or KO. So you deliver those three things, your name will boom up and you can make a highlight reel off of your opponent. So that's the one thing I thought. Just be smart.
Maybe 3 times.
I'm already looking at the Fedor card. I'm so crazy. I'm already looking to see who's on that card and get this victory and just jump on that card because I'm in a Fedor middle of.
Plus, you're born in Russia, so they can definitely market 2 Russian fighters on that fight in San Jose. No way around it. I know you definitely rock the Armenian flag, but you do have your Russian roots.
Oh yeah, if Fedor lets me walk out with him, or he could walk me out, that'll be awesome too. Maybe he could do that before the fight. But that's
no doubt
not gonna happen.
Man, like Goz said, we've been to a lot of them, and we've seen some great ones. That Bubba Jenkins fight will just be one we won't be able to forget it anytime soon in Anaheim, California, in front of a lot of people that that we all know. And do your thing and embrace these moments that you get to fight in front of your friends and family in Southern California. I know Inglewood's just a little bit farther than Anaheim, but I think everyone can get from your neck of the woods to L.A. in less than an hour, or in about 1 hour. So soak it up and enjoy it, Georgie, and we'll be watching in a few weeks. We'll be down there as well.
Thank you, George and Ghost. Thank you, guys. Thank you, my junkie. See you guys.
All right, brother. Take care, man. Have a safe camp. We'll talk to you soon. All right, folks, that's Georgi Karakhanyan. You can follow him on Twitter at Georgi MMA, GeorGi MMA. Give him some love. Tell him you heard him on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. These fighters love hearing that stuff. So I think sometimes there's so many shows out there, they're like, who are the bozos I'm talking to today? So it kind of helps us out a little bit as well. All right, folks, the first hour is getting ready to wrap up. And again, we did lose Felice Herrig. We'll reroute her. We have some time because she's on that early February card, UFC Fight Night 104. That's the Super Bowl card. It's out in Houston the day before the Super Bowl. So we still have about 3 weeks. We'll do a catch-up with her. She just had to do, this is about the time when the fighters have other stuff going on, like the medicals, and I think there was just some over-planning or counter-planning. I don't know. Anyway, so the first hour is up, but we'll be back in about 4 minutes. 30. Keep it locked here on Facebook.com/MMA, official MMA Junkie, or there's another option, YouTube.com/MMA Junkie Video. So give us a few minutes and we'll be right back.
And time keeps dragging on.
They are the Wright brothers of mixed martial arts. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
I like that tune right there. Let it play out for a second.
Does anybody?
I'm down with that. All right. So we're back. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show, and unfortunately, we won't be talking to Felice Herrig. Boy, Felice is growing up, all grown up in front of our eyes here, ever since 2006, 2007, the reality show Fight Girls on Oxygen. Remember that, Goes?
Yeah, a lot of people came out of that. Gina Carano, Karate Hottie.
I think she was about 23 years old when that show filmed. And veterans like Gina Carano and Lisa King were mentoring her and other girls. Yeah, the Karate Hottie was another one. You can hammer through that in about a Saturday. It was only like 7 episodes, maybe, Goes, right? Maybe
Something
9?
like that. I want to say it was 8 episodes.
And they may have had a season 2. I don't remember. But the first one was good. If you just want to go back and just watch some old reality TV, check it out. Island and compete. And I'm sure if we rebook her, she's going to be fighting Alexa Grasso. But she's kind of in that role. Maybe not coming off a reality show like she was. It's a platform. She's got to go up against the veterans. So a lot of young.
If you think about what Alexa would want out of the fight, Felice is going to give her that. And Felice is very good at that aspect of the fight.
Man. She's a really, really good fighter.
Yeah.
No doubt. Doesn't mean that the mentor loses, that's for sure. A lot of times that's that you need the young person sometimes needs to get checked. And sometimes the skill set is equal, but the experience is on one of the fighter's sides, and
it kind of
you go back and you rally again.
Think of like Paige Van Zandt, right, when she faced Rose Namajunas. You could have a situation like that where Alexa Grasso goes, "Whoa, okay, maybe I'm not where I need to be." Felice is the type of girl that can do that to you.
Yeah, I refer to that as paying. I like to refer to that in my breakdowns as paying taxes, right? I mean, a lot of times we get caught up whatever the division, whatever the narrative, who they're kind of hyping behind, and we have to remember that much more talented people than the person we're probably looking at have been taxed before in the UFC. Like, no one's really exempt from that, right? Mm-hmm. I can't think of anybody, especially that first, like you guys said, especially when you're coming up. It's that first loss. Everybody's got to get one, and see how they bounce back from it.
Yeah. We got plenty of time.
I was going to say, unless your name's Cody Garbrandt, because he's undefeated and doing really well for himself.
I'm telling you, man, that's what really made that performance so exceptional, was that could have been a moment where a young fighter just needed to get checked by, in this case, it wouldn't have just been a mentor. It would have been an all-time great, a future Hall of Famer, and there would have been nothing wrong with losing to Dominic Cruz. Trust me, a lot of people have done it. Then you dust yourself off, come back, and either give it another shot and lose yet again, or maybe it's enough to overtake the champion. But in this case, not only did he not get checked, not only did he just squeak by it and get a victory or a gift, judges decision. I mean, oh boy, I don't even know if humiliate's the right word, because you got to give Dom his respect of who he is in the sport and how great he is. And it could be that any other bantamweight would have lost to Dominic Cruz in the same dominating type fashion that Dominic Cruz does it. It could just be that Garbrandt's going to be an all-time great. But, I mean, to do what he did, this is a guy that was getting owned on Fight Week with the trash talk and just being uncomfortable. And he wanted to go after him behind the those walls, those partitions that separate them when they do these these shows where split screen type interviews or whatever. I mean, he was really, really like bothered, and so I thought it was going to mess with his psyche going into the fight. I thought, wow, that line's going to shoot the other way. I mean, Dominic really, really is taking it to this guy, and after one round of wildly missing and maybe getting taken down, all of a sudden you're going to think the guy that's kind of melting down on TV, he's not going to have the mental capacity to deal with this type of adversity. So round 2 is going to be even wider, and then Dominic's going to hit that that 10-8 round in round 3, you know, and then you see the fighter hanging his head. You see the coach telling him, bro, you got to knock him out. There's no chance here, you know. And then they read the scores off, 50-45, 50-46, whatever. And you just say it's another dominating performance by an all-time great. It went nothing like that. Nothing. I mean, this guy was doing the matador. This guy was clowning him. This guy was hitting him. He was frustrating him. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. And I don't know if we did it justice in how we described what we watched. You know, two weeks ago. It was about 2 weeks ago. It was a masterful performance, and I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again.
I think he did get in his head, but I don't think that's the complete reason he won that fight. I thought he did a lot of things tactically. For one, I think he made Dominic come to him, and nobody's been able to do that so far. And what I don't understand is Dominic Cruz, was the trash talk really worse than what he went through with Uriah Faber? Mm-hmm. I mean, that just seemed like two guys that could not even be in the same room. The Garbrandt smack talk just seemed like another day at the office. I don't know how Cody was able to get into his head that way.
Yeah, I think.
Wait. You think Cody got into Dom's head?
Yeah, I think he did, and I think it affected him. Remember, I told you when he walked out, he had a scowl on his face, and he never looks like that.
I think in the fight, he got in his head.
I thought Dominic got in his head.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought too.
Me too.
But it didn't play out that way. Yeah. It didn't seem that way. If you look at Dominic's emotions during the fight, it just seemed like somebody had gotten in his head.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
I was going to say the note on the countering thing was interesting. A lot of the mistake that I know a lot of analysts, including myself, made the mistake of is that we thought that you couldn't, sit there and wait to counter on Dominic Cruz because that was going to be the wrong thing. We saw Uriah Faber do it and fail, right? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of in our Uriah Faber, Team Alpha Male, Cody Garbrandt. They're going to wait and try to counter. We're going to see that game plan, and we were all kind of writing off to a certain extent Cody Garbrandt, and that's what made his performance so amazing, and that's what made the flip script amazing, whether it was the physical, what we were seeing, or even the emotional, which is up to interpretation of what Goes was seeing, which I gotta agree. I agree with both you guys. I thought Dom had him mentally, and that's why I felt so strong about Dom more than the techniques. But as soon as the fight started, boy, that hat flipped real fast.
I hear what you're saying, Goes. He did have a different look, but I just think that there's different reasons for fighting on a certain night, and to me, it just looked like, you know what? I'm just going to be a gangster in this fight. He kind of had a little bit more facial hair, and he was kind of donning the hoodie a little bit more. And because we see so much of that clean-cut image Dominic Cruz on the Fox set, I think he was just showing everybody, look how quick I can go from being, Clark Kent to the superhero, but the superhero that does bad stuff to people. So I didn't read it so much as Cody got into his head, just kind of like, I obviously know I can't do this for a living. I'm just going to approach this different. I'm going to get nasty. That's that Team Alpha Male. He's part of that Team Alpha Male that always comes at me. So, it's kind of me versus them because Alliance hasn't developed another guy that competes versus Team Alpha Male. So it's Team Alpha Male versus Dominic Cruz. So I didn't interpret it that way. It's interesting. You're making me think. My wheels are turning. But I really thought that Dominic just, had what was mentally stable. I just think he was physically outperformed. I don't think at any point he mentally crumbled because I think he still came out, tried a few different things. It's just that Cody was either super prepared, is going to be an amazing superstar. I don't know. Some people have said Dominic looked a little slower, but I don't think it was that. I think Cody knows exactly how to use his footwork. He knows how to box. He knows how to use head movement. So when Dom misses, he's going to look a little bit more wild than usual. He's never really been a straight puncher per se. Everything's so off balance. So I don't agree with those that said he looked slower. I just think Cody looked crisp and sharp, and he gained a lot of confidence as the fight was going.
I think he wasn't expecting Cody to hit so hard. If you look at a lot of his shots, Dominic shots, he was just He wasn't in the range that he's normally in.
Yep.
And I think it's because he was afraid of that power.
No, Gigi nailed a couple good points there. Yeah, I mean, with the speed thing or even like the mental thing that me and Goes were talking about, that's a little more speculation around. That's a little harder to grasp than something like our computers that are physically in front of us. But the one thing that you can point to as a fact that Garbrandt made Cruz fight on his terms, and that was the key. Usually Cruz is creating his terms, whether he's feinting you and faking you. You're trying to think of what the terms are. Garbrandt had none of that. At certain points, he was literally pointing to the exact spot on the mat that he wanted to fight at, would walk there, and fight there. He was making Cruz fight on his terms, and I think that's the one concrete thing we can look back on that fight and point to as a major success point.
two other things, and then we'll go to the phones. One, Ferguson is implying that him versus Khabib is kind of a done deal. Now, I've heard behind the scenes, I think I said this yesterday, pretty much the same way I'm going to say it today, T's need to be crossed, I's need to be dotted, but it sounds like maybe money will not be that issue. I think they've kind of crossed that hurdle. So we're expecting something official. I mean, it was official enough that our editorial felt like, okay, here are the particulars. It'll be him versus Khabib, UFC 209. I imagine that's your co-main to Woodley and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But I think we're still going to wait for the UFC to kind of put that tweet out, or Dana White, and I think that makes it, for sure 100% official. But we're feeling pretty good about it, so I'm stoked. It'll happen in Vegas. And it kind of rules out McGregor defending his title before that kid's born. And I think a lot of us felt that maybe that's the hiccup. Maybe Conor picked up the phone and said, hey, I can still squeeze one more fight in and then take those 2 months off before my baby arrives in May. It looks like maybe that might not happen. Woodley would be out of the ball game as well. If he was going to do it, I guess the only players left would be Aldo or Nate Diaz, and they're both strong possibilities. And then one other thing I wanted to point out, how about Damian Maia? It never ceases to amaze me how much of a stand-up gentleman this guy can be. He hears the news of Woodley and Thompson being booked for UFC 209 March 4th in Las Vegas. He writes on Twitter, keeps it simple. It's official, so I wish you a great fight and trust the winner will give me the opportunity you both have been given. And he tagged at T Woodley, 3 O's in Woodley, and at Wonderboy MMA. It doesn't get any better than that, right, guys?
Very classy. And to further on your point, you're right. There are probably only 2 fights that make sense. Aldo and Nate Diaz. And even then, they don't make sense, but that could possibly happen that would give Conor McGregor a fight. The Woodley fight is now gone because he's matched up. But here's the thing. We talked about defending your belt. In either one, he wouldn't have to defend his belt because he's not going to go down and face Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo would have to come up. There he would defend his belt, right? But in the other one, in Nate Diaz, he doesn't have to defend his belt. And that's why I feel like that could still be a possibility of seeing that matchup.
Right. Many will point to Dana saying, no, enough's enough. But as been pointed out by many of our callers, many sharps, it's when he says one thing, he's looking in another direction. If anything, it's maybe just a tactic to let these guys know we can do other stuff, so don't come with the $20 million payouts if we are going to do a part 3, because you never know, man. Those guys are crazy enough to ask for that type of money.
Right now,
especially with the pay-per-views that they sell. That's
what I was going to say. If WME was a fighter and they walked out, they would be walking out too. That's the personality I'm getting out of these guys.
All right, I think we have a caller on hold. Let's bring in that caller, Chris, if you don't mind. Junkie Hotline.
This is Horace Gracie.
I knew it. What's up, Horace? How you doing?
Man, I heard Dan Tom was in the house. He's the best analyst in MMA. He really break it down like Henner.
Dude, I'm getting a compliment from the legend right now. That's crazy. Thank you so much, Horace. I appreciate that, man.
We were just talking about his fight with Matt Hughes earlier.
Yeah, we were.
Sorry to bring that up, Horace.
Matt Hughes got lucky. His jiu-jitsu's garbage. Look, man.
What if it wasn't? What if it wasn't MMA? It was just straight jiu-jitsu. You got him, Horace?
Man, I would take my pleasure to go longer than Sakuraba. I would take him for 3 hours, torturing him, man. He wouldn't have a chance.
Well, why don't you make it happen? Man. There's Eddie Bravo Invitational. There's Submission
Eddie
Underground.
Bravo do drugs, man. Don't bring up Eddie Bravo to me, man. That man, he does drugs. He's no good home model. Forget it, man. Never mind him. Listen, man, I call about Honda. Everybody say she got to reinvent herself. She got to do wrestling, improve her stand-up. Man, I say you got to return to the roots of MMA, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. If she trained Gracie, nobody going to beat her, man.
Yeah, well, she put out a recent Instagram post, and it sounds like she's hit rock bottom. And in doing so, maybe that'll shake things up, and maybe a new coach or some new looks might come out of that.
look, man, she needs to leave the UFC, come to Bellator, talk to me.
That was awesome.
Didn't take it too personal. Sherdog.com, and now a co-host of a podcast that he does with Josh Gross that I've been researching a little bit, and it'll be fun to talk to him about that. They don't do X's and O's, they said, but they got some stories. So in the meantime, while we take this break, you can check out Sherdoggy, the Sherdoggy, excuse me. That's his Twitter handle. Give him a follow there, and then check out MMA Outsiders Podcast. We'll talk more about that when we come back. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93.
They were forged from the same ball sack, but act as though they've never met. They are the brothers Garcia, Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, we're back. We're also joined by Dan Tom in our Vegas studio. Great having you, Dan. You're doing a great job as always.
Thank you very much.
And shout out to Ken Hathaway, a co-host of the MMA Roadshow with John Morgan. I hear him there goes, and usually when Kenny's in studio, good things are happening, right?
Yeah. Kenny got here early today and helped out with a lot of stuff. If you notice in the right-hand corner of our screen, he put together this cool little bug that's up there now.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to go a little old school with our next guest, Jeff Sherwood, the founder of Sherdog.com, and now the co-host of the MMA Outsiders podcast with Josh Gross is going to join us here in just a second. Who are the people that are sitting at the bottom of these pyramids, that help grow the sport? Jeff is definitely one of those guys. And so it goes when I was checking this stuff out yesterday and this morning regarding Jeff Sherwood and Josh Gross and their MMA podcast, I signed up because it reminded me of Ryan Bennett and the commercial they used to run to help to support the show. they asked for a $5 investment, and you and I made that because we wanted to help it grow. And I'm doing that with Jeff and Josh because I want to see their show grow as well. And so they only asked for $3, man, and I'm in. And so now I get to go back and hear some old stories, and it's not too late to catch up. It's not like I'm joining a series that's had 7 seasons and 100 episodes. It looks like they just dropped their 10th episode, so I'm excited to do that and catch up. Let's bring on Jeff Sherwood. What's up, Jeff? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thanks for the nice introduction. You make me sound very, very good.
Well, listen, man, you're definitely a legend in our sport. The founder of Sherdog.com, so much of your time went into supporting our sport. And I'm really, really anxious to get into and dive into yours and Josh's stories. I love the way you guys phrased it in your new podcast, The Outsiders, where if you want X's and O's, you came to the wrong spot. But if you want to know about some of the stuff that happened back in the day when you guys were really, really on the inside, then grab a chair and grab a beer, and here they come. So I can't wait to start. I joined in, and I hope you guys really, really grow this show.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks. It's a work in progress. Obviously, me and Josh have worked together for many years, but not necessarily in podcasting or radio, or whatever you want to call it. But so we're getting it down. We just did our 10th recording last night, 10th episode. So things are going good. And that's true. Like the X's and O's, there's so many podcasts out there that you could listen to, and they'll break down a fight or break down an entire card and things like that. And we're just, at this point where we're at, we're just like over that. So we like to talk about the fighters and the things that we know about the fighters and stories and things that we've had witnessed with these fighters and things like that. We just feel that's a little funner and easier to talk about.
There are times where a fighter will tell you something that's, off the record, or hang on to that until the public finds out, or whatever, or maybe just a story. And then 10 years later, you find out that the story kind of comes out or whatever. So is that the type of stuff that will happen that we can expect in the podcast, where stuff where back then you couldn't really talk about, now you can, divulge and hear your side or Josh's side or other people's side of like some of the history of our sport?
Yeah, exactly. That's the type of things. And there were so many times where, I don't know, I was kind of in a weird situation, running Sherdog, because I wasn't one of the guys that went to school to be a journalist. And still to this day, I don't really, identify myself as a journalist, because I never had any official schooling or anything like that. But it was weird because fighters used to come to me and tell me so many things, like on a personal level, and just be like, hey, that's kind of between me and you. And I never outed one of those guys. And I think that's kind of how I was able to, be in the sport for 20 plus years and still have a pretty good relationship with just about everyone in the sport. I mean, for the most part, I don't, maybe there are a few people out there that hate me, but they don't really go on record or talk shit about me that I see. So I think that, maybe it was for that reason. But, yeah, there were so many stories and things like that. The old Pride days when me and Josh used to go to all the Prides together, and the things that used to happen there. And, stuff like that will all come out slowly.
Now, is this the type of show where you guys have a Twitter mailbag, or do you – because I haven't listened to a show yet. I signed up, and I'm going to try and crank through all these in the next couple months. But is this going to be one of those shows where, old school fans can kind of maybe pitch their own questions or ask questions about old stories, and you can confirm or not confirm, like that type of audience participation?
Yeah, we're definitely going to get more, audience participation. We're working on that and working on ideas and different things, and we're working on different packages. You said we asked for $3 a month, and we're looking on other packages because there's some listeners and stuff that want to come on the show, and we tape it, so we're not live, so it's kind of hard to take phone calls. But we're looking at maybe having some packages where somebody could donate a little bit more and say, hey, I want to be on the show next week, and we'll let that caller come in and be on the show. Or like, hey, we really want you and Josh to break down UFC 28, or, you know, what you remember about it and the things that, you know, the stories behind that, and, you know, things like that. We're still new, so we're still kind of working out the kinks and trying to get to know each other on the air and go from there.
I love it. It's called being a patron. So I'm a patron. I love it. We're talking about the Outsiders podcast, Jeff Sherwood and Josh Gross, 10 episodes in. If you want to check it out for more information, start with adding Jeff on Twitter at the Sherdoggy, and all the information is there. It's patreon.com/MMA Outsiders. You'll really, really dig it. Jeff is the founder of Sherdog.com. Jeff, last year, I believe, was when you were no longer with Sherdog. How did that feel, I guess, for the last, you know, we're now about 8 months in, not having Sherdog part of your life? You know, are you sad? Do you feel, is there a relief, or what are your emotions right now?
Well, it's tough. It actually happened in April, so it was actually a good birthday present for me, for them to fire me, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, it's tough when you got up every morning for 20 years and you know, this is what you did. This is what you dedicated your life to. So yeah, it is tough. You know, some days are tougher than others, but some days are nice because it's like, yeah, okay, I don't have to get on my laptop today. I'd been on my laptop every day for probably a minimum of 12 to 15 hours a day for like 20 years. And when I first was relieved of my duties, I didn't open my laptop for like 2 weeks. I had no idea what was going on. I stayed off of Twitter for the most part. I stayed off of Facebook, and I just kind of, you know, went through a winding down process. Like, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to sit on my laptop all day long and look for news and do things like that. So in a way, it was a little bit of a relief, but, you know, in the end, it was still my baby for 20 years of my life. So yeah, it is kind of sad and depressing a little bit.
What did it take to start a website like Sherdog in the late 90s? Like, financially, are we talking about hundreds, thousands, just to get it going?
Well, the way I started it was pretty much absolutely free. You know, I started on a free server, GeoCities. I don't know if there's anybody out there as old as me that remembers GeoCities. So yeah, that's where Sherdog started. So for the most part, it was pretty free for about a year, you know, just some minor costs, you know, little road trips that I'd make here and there and stuff. And then we finally moved up in the world and got our own server and web address and things like that. So it increased a little bit. And then pretty much it just started growing like crazy, you know, started buying camera equipment, started, you know, going to all the UFCs and things like that. So it quickly grew, and that's when we added the store, and that's how we offset our costs. Because back in the day, you know, that's what the sport ran. It's a full-time job, and I basically did it all myself. So I was shipping between 30 and 50 orders every single day of DVDs, clothing, walkout T-shirts, and stuff like that.
Well, what I was going to get at was, I thought about something here, and it's really just here during the interview. I was going to go in another direction, but as much as Zuffa gets applauded for turning $2 million into $4.2 billion, you almost turned nothing, a zero investment, into, you know, a lucrative windfall for yourself, a career. That's incredible too, man. You know, I have much respect for being able to pull that off. In addition to, like I stated earlier, just being a founding father, you know, one of those at the bottom of the pyramid that helped this sport grow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That wasn't my first intent, obviously. I was just a fan, just like everybody else on the internet, and I always had issues finding news about mixed martial arts and what was going on in Japan and what was going on in Holland and things like that. So I was like, man, you know, it'd be really cool if somebody had a website that was like ESPN, and that's what I always strived for. And I remember the first conversation I had with Charles Lewis Most people know him as Mask. We were sitting in my office in Huntington Beach, and I was like, I want to be like ESPN of mixed martial arts. And he said, why ESPN? He's like, you can be better than ESPN. That was always Charles' answer to everything. Don't stoop as low as ESPN. You could be better than ESPN. So at that point, how we tried to run business.
Charles Mass Lewis, that somebody would, like yourself, 90s.
There's new fans that don't know the history of the sport. I mean, there's different timelines in MMA. Like we got a bunch of new fans during Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. That's like when the sport first started to blow up, and everybody's like, "Wow, this Ultimate Fighting MMA is really cool." And we got a bunch of fans, and then now, the Conor McGregor era, the Ronda Rousey era, like all these new fans are coming in, and I don't know how many of them actually sit down and do research and find out, about Pride and the old UFCs with the tournaments and things like that. But yeah, Charles Lewis, a lot of people weren't around during the time of him, but yeah, Charles Lewis was a very, very special guy, and we used to have many, many conversations of, where he wanted to take his company and where I wanted to take my company, and yeah, he was definitely an inspiration. And another person you brought up at the beginning of when you were introducing me was Ryan Bennett, and it's kind of crazy because back in the day, like me and Ryan were competitors, like. It was them and us, and and a few others. But me and Ryan were the best friends. Like we would talk like every other day on the phone, and I had the utmost respect for Ryan Bennett. Great guy. Even though we were competitors, we never went that route. We always tried to help each other out. I used to go on his radio show all the time. He actually wanted me on it, which was surprising. You guys definitely need to be two of the first guys that are nominated in there.
Jeff Sherwood, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. We co-host the MMA Outsiders podcast with Josh Gross, and you can follow him on Twitter at @TheSherdog. All right, let me send it over to Goes in Las Vegas. Goes, what do you have for Jeff Sherwood?
Jeff, in starting the website, I know you talked about how it was free, and then from there, you got the server. I'm sure there were a lot of steps, credentials, the store, that sort of thing. What was the one moment that you could point to where you were just really proud of yourself, where you would pull out that bottle and say, "Hey, let's do a shot," to us? What was that one moment that really brought you joy?
The one that always sticks out in my mind, which is crazy these days with the way that the internet traffic is, just like it would be at MMA Junkie and all these other websites. But I still remember the first day because I still worked for Boeing at that time, so I was creating Sherdog, working on Sherdog, and working for Boeing as well. And I remember sitting at Boeing, and I went on the website, and then I realized that we got 100 hits in one day. And that was the one day. 100 hits, which is like nothing, which is like, 20 minutes now for most big MMA websites. But that one day that the website hit 100 people, I was like, man, we're big. We made it.
Jeff, how about now when you watch fights, in doing what we all do, when we watch fights, we watch it not really as fans anymore. We're picking everything apart in our brains. It's kind of weird. But now when you watch fights, what's that experience like? I mean, can you sit back and just kind of relax and enjoy it? Or do you still have that frame of mind where you're looking at things and putting the pieces together? How does that work for you?
It depends where I'm at. If I go over to somebody's house and we're sitting there, having some cocktails and things like that, I tend to be able to relax a little bit more, and not totally break down the fight as it happens. I mean, it comes natural when we're in this sport for so long. When you're watching a fight, you tend to be breaking it down, whether you doing it on purpose. It just comes subconsciously. But when I'm over at a buddy's house and we're drinking beers or things like that and talking, I'm turning away from the fight, and it's way more enjoyable. It's like I'm a fan again, So I really like those moments, but a lot of times I find myself watching fights by myself, and no matter what, if I'm by myself, I'm breaking the fight down, I'm breaking the fighters down, I'm breaking the judging down, I'm breaking everything down. So it definitely works wonders to go out and drink some beers and watch UFC. Like, I'm just a average fan and got nothing to do except have fun watching some fights.
You were mentioning all the different waves of fans, and I'm thinking of the fighters, the Randy Coutures, the Vanderlei Silvas, the Hoist Gracies, and then Stephan Bonners and the Forrest Griffins, all the different generations. The one thing we've said on this show is it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Anderson Silva, GSP, those were the top dogs, and when they went away, you have this feeling of going, all right, what's going to happen now? But new people show up, right? The Ronda Rouseys, the Conor McGregors. Is there a particular fighter that you could point to that, even though when they left, obviously the sport marches on, but you feel like maybe things aren't the same once that guy left, like somebody that had a big place in your heart?
I would say Chuck Liddell is definitely one of them. It's kind of weird because my favorite fighters through the years were never the big stars. Like, my first favorite fighter that I used to love to watch fight was Pele. And, I bet you most of the new fans that are listening to this show have no idea who Pele is. And they really have no idea that there used to be two Peles. So, it's kind of crazy. And a fighter now that I love to watch fight, and obviously he has fans, but he's not a star, is Ben Saunders. There's just something about Ben that when he gets into the cage, like, you're going to have a good time watching him, no matter what. If he's on his back, if he's kicking somebody in the head, you're going to have a good time watching Ben Saunders. But to go back to your question, I would probably say Chuck Liddell. I mean, he was the one that kind of started to get a little mainstream play for the most part, the Randy and Chuck era. But when Chuck, retired and sat down, it was a little bit like, oh, man, Chuck's not going to fight again. That was a little sad.
Jeff, how about going back to traffic? I love the 100 hit story. At Junkie, we do well when Conor fights, and especially when Ronda fights. So I imagine Chuck will probably be maybe at the top of your list or one on the list. But as the website kept progressing and you kept breaking numbers, maybe 1,000 hits or 10,000 or whatever you guys got up to in the millions, who were your needle movers? Who were you, like, when was it that you had to reinforce and make sure the server wasn't going to crash and you just knew it was going to be a big night, therefore you looked forward to that person getting booked?
Tito. We sold more stuff from the store that had Tito in it, more punishment clothes than anything. I mean, everyone loved Tito. It was weird because, like, Tito was the guy. It was kind of funny because Tito took over Tank's spot. Like, Tank, if you go back in the day, like, Tank was the heel, but everyone wanted to watch him fight as well because half the people wanted to see him get his ass kicked, and the other half wanted to see him knock somebody out into convulsions. And then here comes Tito, the Huntington Beach Bad Boy Part 2, but he carried the UFC for a while, and it kind of was the same way. So many people hated Tito, but so many people loved him that no matter what, everyone tuned in, and not necessarily for the same reason.
Yeah, I believe it. We've heard it behind the scenes, that he held the UFC hostage, when he was holding out for more money. And I guess we just never knew to what kind of power he had. But, yeah, man, that guy was something else back in the day. He was
like the first Conor McGregor. I mean, and that changed Dana's whole way of himself, and basically took the UFC on his shoulders, and was the face of pay-per-view for a while, and then he started to do that. He'd be like, they're like, hey, Tito, we want you to fight on this main event. I mean, he had to be watching that fight going, I'm the only meal ticket in town.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Conor McGregor, let's not, the UFC, obviously the new UFC has tons of money and everything. But in a way, Conor McGregor kind of has them by the balls because the UFC is, even though they're pumping out shows, there's tons of great fights, there's tons of great fighters. When you listen to mainstream media, who do they talk about? Conor and Ronda. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
So
Jeff,
Connor's
that's
kind of
so fun to go down memory lane. Well, now that some months went by. You're no longer with Sherdog, and now you started the podcast. How bad do you like? Do you have a thirst, for getting back in MMA? Jumping in the deep end. You gonna take it slow? Do you like where you're at? Because obviously you can write, you can do video interviews, you can host a podcast. You're an amazing photographer. So, where is MMA gonna take you? How involved will you be in MMA going forward?
Well, first thing, I must have fooled you a little bit because I write like a third grader. That's the one thing that I can't do is write. But the other things I'm okay at. At this point, I don't know. I've had a couple offers that just haven't really, reached out and grabbed me. Working on a couple things. I went through a little process there that I was thinking, do I even want to stay in the sport? I'm in the process right now of taking my state exam for insurance. Now, do I want to do that? Do I want to stay in the sport? Would I be discrediting the sport or myself if I didn't stay and try and do something in the sport? So I'm kind of battling that. I'm definitely leaning on staying in the sport. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of things that could be done out there. Not that I'm some great, guy that's going to get everything done, but I think there's a lot of programs that could possibly work for these fighters' safety and just some little ideas of things that I have. So, the wheels are turning. The only problem is that my wheel is a little slow. I think my hamster's like three-legged, and he's been hammered for so long. He's a little slow sometimes, but, it's coming, and it'll work its way out one way or another, hopefully.
Well, thanks for doing the interview. And, again, we'd love to do a part 2 with you sometime. Congrats on launching this podcast with Josh Gross. Definitely plan on tuning in, and again, if we can do another catch up in a couple months, that'd be great.
Anytime. I'm unemployed, so if I'm not taking the kids to school, I'm free.
All right, thanks Jeff for the time, man. Enjoy your day.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We'll
Take care.
All right, take care. Man, that was awesome, Goes. I want to first of all thank Big Juan Ramirez for even lighting the idea and getting things going. He basically booked him. He had his latest contact info. But seriously, Jeff talked about Mask and Ryan Bennett, and he will be joining those guys as a Hall of Famer someday because he built Sherdog into the biggest website out there, and there's so much history there. Can't wait to really dig into some of those episodes that they've launched. All right, folks, we're going to take our last break and then come back and close up shop. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93.
Didn't have time to roll music.
Blah, blah, blah. Here are those two dummies, George and Goes.
All right, folks. So we just have a couple minutes left, and then we got to bounce. This weekend, though, is LFA, their first card. Legacy and Resurrection have card. The next day will be One Championship 51, Quest for Power. Big, big organization out in Asia that just kills it, does well. They'll be doing their thing as well. That's an online pay-per-view, $9.99, I believe. Puts it on your tablet or on your MacBook Power Pro or whatever. I don't know what Windows people call themselves with their computers, but it's really, really cheap. Same day, Invicta FC 21, Anderson versus Tweet on the UFC Fight Pass in Kansas City, Missouri. They have a title fight there, interim featherweight bout. And we have UFC Fight Night 103. UFC's offering is on a Sunday night after the NFL games are over. Rodriguez versus Penn. Yes, BJ Penn. So lots going on this weekend. We'll talk more about it as we end our week tomorrow and Friday. Want to thank our guest today, Jeff Sherwood, founder of Sherdog.com and now co-host to the MMA Outsiders with Josh Gross. Check it out. Georgi Karakhanyan, he'll be doing this thing on January 21st against Emmanuel Sanchez at Bellator 170. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Kevin Casey, also fighting on that same card, as well as Brennan Ward and Paul Daly, also from that card. They're actually the co-main eventers. They'll be fighting each other. Should be a great fight and great time with both of them. Dan Tom, outstanding work as always. Follow him on Twitter at the MM Analyst and catch his breakdowns on Flow Combat. You'll really enjoy it. He breaks it down like no other. Goes and Chris did an outstanding job as well. Goes, you want to say anything? We got about 60 seconds left before we bounce out of here.
Yeah, I want to thank Kenny too. He was here today behind the scenes, helping out on his day off. Nothing stops this man.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Kenny. Seriously, you've made a difference in our show, man. We can't thank you enough. Catch Kenny if you want more of Kenny. That's a.k.a. Cold Coffee, John Morgan's partner in crime, on the MMA Roadshow with John Morgan. It drops on our website on Fridays, and sometimes they have that 0.5 after a big show on Sundays, so be on the lookout for that. So we are out of here. Thank you, Chris. Back east, you did a tremendous job. I took it to another level, of course. I was fantastic, so kudos to me. We'll be back tomorrow, 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, with another edition of MMA Junkie Radio. Go out there, folks, and be champions.
It's rolling around the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine. I'm stuck in